Take your team to new heights with training you can trust from CBTC. Unlock your team's potential with affordable seminars and customized training in topics like leadership, safety, manufacturing, transportation, and technology. CBTC is more than a provider. We are your partner for talent upskilling, licensure renewal, recertification, and much more. Discover the impacts that come with our training, from heightened productivity to enhanced teamwork and a commitment to a safer workplace. Visit cbtc.edu/workforce solutions to get started today.
Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of the Pablo Center podcast, Beyond the Stage. I'm Kathy Wright, the Director of Talent and Booking, here to tell you about what is going on both on and off the stage at Pablo Center. And today, I'm so excited to welcome Dennis Beale as our guest of honor today, because we have an amazing thing happening in our theater today, in our RC theater. And Dennis, it ties directly into what Power of Perception does and really what you're trying to do with your mentors and students. And man, we're excited. So first, Dennis, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, what would you like to know? No, I'm going to give you a little
We only have
rundown.
a half an hour.
Yeah, it's all good. So I'm excited to be here today. Obviously, I'm Dennis. I'm the CEO and founder of Power Perception, Inc. I started a nonprofit organization that's geared towards serving African-American, biracial, but also multicultural students from all different walks of life in the 6th through 12th grade. And so it's truly an honor to be here and just talk more about the organization, what we're doing, but also really excited about tonight to take the kids over for this amazing concert. You know, when Kathy reached out about this opportunity, I think it was a no-brainer, man. And honestly, like when we talk about bringing people that look like myself into this type of community, I think that really speaks volumes to, you know, the work that our community wants to do and wants to change, you know, because I say it like this, I'm not a big political person, but with all this stuff going on with, you know, them trying to like die down the EDI stuff, you know, my biggest thing is just making sure that we letting the kids know that they're still important. You know what I mean? That their color matter, their voices matter, and that they matter within our community. So I think it's only right for us to just show support and come out and, you know, flood the tailgates with a lot of good kids.
Awesome. Well, we'll let the cat out of the bag a little bit about what we're talking about. So tonight, Pablo Center is hosting an artist called BLACK VIOLIN, and they are two classically trained Black men that are violinists, violin and viola, and they started playing together in clubs. They were approached by Alicia Keys' manager to do some things. They played on the Billboard Music Awards. The show is incredible, and basically they started to play hip-hop on their classical instruments and really created something different and began touring the country as BLACK VIOLIN. It's basically if a nightclub threw two violins in the DJ booth. So really, really amazing show that's going to be taking place this evening, and something that Pablo Center is very excited about is we're welcoming, as of recording today, at least 75, probably 100 by the time we get to curtain tonight. Power of Perception, both mentees and students. And I can't wait for them to be in the theater and to be able to experience this show. I can't wait to experience the show. If you've been around me in the last 5 months, it's all I've talked about because it's going to be incredible. But, you know, and we are a mission-based organization here at Pablo Center, and we really saw this show not only as something that the community is going to completely love, but something that really can bring some of that mission to what we do here, and that's to bring different types of things to our stage than we would normally have. So, Dennis, tell me a little bit about why it's so important for your students and your mentors to be in the audience tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that we thrive on is, you know, making sure that our students see people that look like themselves in different positions, right? Whether that's, you know, that person being a CEO of an organization, whether that person is a well-known figure within the music industry, you know, I think that really speaks volumes. And so obviously, you know, we're in Eau Claire. Let's be frank about that. You know, we're in a predominantly white community. And so sometimes they don't always see the success of, you know, African-American or biracial or multicultural, you know, success, if I'm being honest. And so having something like this for them to see people that look like themselves on a stage performing, but showing it that they can eventually be in those shoes one day. So I think it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing for them to actually see it and witness it. And so I think them being in the vicinity to see it close up firsthand, and maybe even get the opportunity to meet some of them, I think would be ideal as well. And so I think that's the biggest thing, but showing them that it's possible, you know what I mean? Because some of them, you know, they when you see different things on the media, or you see different things on the news, or, you know, social media, whatever the case might be, some of them is like, no, it's not realistic. You know what I'm saying? So coming and actually seeing it in person. And then also my biggest thing is bringing up their culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's one of the biggest things, because let's be frank, Black history is not always taught within our schools, you know, and on a day-to-day basis. So trying to instill in them certain reasons of why we have this opportunity. Let's thrive off this. Let's feed off of this. And so I think them seeing people that look like them on a high thriving stage, and like you said, just the little things that you mentioned about their success, I think speaks volumes as well. You know, to let them know, like, man, Alicia Key's manager has approached these individuals to help them do some greater things, and they believed in them. And so don't ever think that you don't have that skill or that will to actually be that individual on that stage one day. So I think that really speaks volumes. So
I can imagine a multicultural student in Eau Claire right now that decides to join the symphony.
Yep.
You know, or
Yep.
to join the orchestra and maybe look around and think, nobody really looks like me here. Maybe this isn't my place.
Correct.
And to
Correct.
walk in this evening and realize it is your place.
It is.
And
It is.
everything, like you said, everything is possible.
Correct.
But sometimes just walking through that door, I can imagine, especially in a community like ours, can be difficult often for your students.
Yes.
And what kind of, like, you know, obviously things that we're doing tonight,
Correct.
that's a great way to help them overcome that.
Yes.
But what are some of the tools that you instill in your students and your mentors as far as getting them to overcome that in our community here? Because you're originally from Chicago.
Yes.
And came to Eau Claire.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was a little bit of a
It was
culture
a huge
shock,
it was a
right?
culture
And then
shock.
you
It
went
was
back to
transition.
Chicago and got
Yep.
culture shock. They kind of
Yes.
back again, and
Yep.
and so you ended up here. You chose to raise your family here.
Yep.
Because of the community it is, but it also posed some challenges for you too.
Definitely. And I would definitely say it like this, you know, one of my biggest things was having a mentor, right? And so with me having a mentor, huge shout out to Joe, his name's Joe Webb, Dr. Joe Webb. And my biggest thing was that was somebody I could relate to, you know what I mean? And so when I had that mentor that took me under his wing and just built up my confidence, always talk positive, you know, affirmations within inside of me, made sure he helped me understand what leadership entail, and then also just erasing my fears. You know what I mean? That you could do anything you put your mind to. And I'm a mama's boy. I'll be frank about that. You know, my organization is not faith-based, but I am. And so one of the things that my mom always instilled in me, that I could do anything I put my mind to. You know what I mean? The 2 Corinthians always said that, like, you know, you can literally do anything that you really put your mind to, and don't ever be shied away from that. And that's something I live by, to be quite honest with you. And so trying to instill that within these kids, that confidence, always have confidence in what you're doing. Don't ever think it's unattainable. And the thing about it is, like, closed mouths don't get fed. You know what I mean? So I always tell the students, lead a place better than what you found it. Make sure you all are open. Make sure you all are vocal, because you never know where you will miss out on your opportunity. And my biggest thing is telling them to put their phones down, man.
Oh.
That's a huge thing, you know. So that's one of the things that we also embed within our ECSD district-wide chapter is, you know, making sure that we do activities so they're not always on their phone. You know what I'm saying? So detach from that phone a little bit, talk a little bit, so you can get to know individuals. And like I always tell them, it's like as simple as cleaning up. Leave a place better than what you found it. You know what I mean? Because when people start seeing little traits like that, they might reach out to you and be like, man, you did something that I think my kid might need to hear something from you. You know what I mean? So I always tell them, like, it's always attainable, right? And then even for myself and my story, growing up single parent household, you know, going to college, but that changed my trajectory, right? I always had goals and dreams, but I didn't really have a clear vision until I really gained a mentor that helped me along my journey. And so it's just like these kids. I'm not teaching them one way to be successful. Like I tell them, master a craft, pick up a trade, become an entrepreneur, or go to college. The world is your oyster. And I always use the analogy of a buffet, right? Put it on, you know, when you go into a buffet, what do you see? A variety of different foods, right, that you want to try, right?
Except the broccoli. My kid will never try the broccoli.
There you go, right? So it's just that plethora of just different foods that you're going to try. Some you're going to like and some you're not, you know what I mean? And so through what we're doing through Power of Perception is letting them try a variety of different things. We bring in different guest speakers. We take them to different field trips, right? I want to say even on our biggest trips, when we look back, we took them to South Africa in summer of 2023. That was a huge life-changing experience for those 15 high schoolers that went. They got their passports. We worked with Royal Credit Union, got them checking and savings accounts.
Incredible.
But that was an opportunity within itself. And now all of them that went, all they want to do is travel now. You know what I mean? And so you should have seen it when they first started. They was like timid, just real hesitant, just real reserved, didn't know what to expect. But it's like, man, go for it. You never know. Like, just go out there, try it, and see if it sticks, right? And if it's stuck, it's stuck. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to do here within the Great Eau Claire community. And that's why I chose to come back here, raise my kids here, because the community was so good to me. But if it wasn't for those resources and those great people that were around me, so my head football coach at that time, Todd Glazier, was a huge asset to me. Bessie Cal was a huge mentor of mine. Even my board president now, Trish Cummings, just always spoke life into everything that I was doing. They always believed in me. And so I think my biggest thing in my team is always tell them, believe in those kiddos, talk to those kiddos, right? A lot of us as mentors, having that lived experience is everything, right? I'm coming from Chicago. I got one person on my team that's from Atlanta. I got another one that's on there from Florida. I have another Chicago cat, another cat from Milwaukee, but we all have lived experiences. And my biggest thing is having those lived experience can help with a lot of wisdom. Right? We went through failures. We went through our successes, right? But even for the failures, like I always say, like sometimes you take your lessons as blessings, right? And take that and help that push you to further heights, right? Because there's no telling, man, like even just turmoil of losing people along the journey, because everybody ain't gonna be able to ride this journey with you, and that's okay, right? But helping them to understand, like, keep working, keep striving, you know what I mean?
I think it's so important too for youth right now to understand that you might need to have people exit the train too, right? That's like there are going to be people that might not be serving you.
Yes.
And it's okay. It's okay to walk away from those relationships that aren't serving you. And sometimes you just need someone to give you permission to do that. Yep. And so I think that the work you're doing here, I mean, without question, is incredible. And I mean, how many youth are you serving currently?
Man, right now. So when we first started, I'm not going to lie, we started off with 10 kids in one chapter. Now we're up to 6 chapters total and probably serving over 250 plus kids now.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so great. It's so great. And I think, I was kind of looking through some of the things that have been published about you, and you talk about, changing lives daily and really, creating moments for people, and you have to create opportunity.
Yes.
And I love, at Pablo Center, when we talk about how we serve youth here, that really is something for us, is to create opportunity everywhere we turn around. Yep. Is there an opportunity to have a child lean into a STEAM program? Yep. To have one of your students walk through the door and join a robotics team.
Yes.
And to be able to go qualify for nationals. Yep. And go have your robot complete at nationals. Yep. That there's opportunities that are out there that that we create and can tie in with what you're doing as well. For sure. Even some of our mentors through some of these programs, through Lego League or robotics. Yep. To be able to bring youth in and expose them to something completely different, and we talk a lot around here about finding your people. Yep. And, if you are that kid that just loves Legos and you're in high school, it might not be the cool thing until you join our Lego team or our robotics team, and all of a sudden you're at a national stage in a national competition. All of a sudden you're pretty stinking cool, right? So, I think that as opportunity creators in our community, missions align so often, and like you said, with youth right now, and especially so many of these kids coming out of COVID, that really electronics was the only way they could communicate for so long, and these we talk a lot about COVID kids right now, and it's very, very real, because those electronics became their only source of any sort of contact with the outside world for so long. And so just having the students in the room tonight. And what I loved is I looked at the RSVP list tonight. So many RSVP'd for one. And it was like, hey, I know I'm going to go. I'm going to have a great time. My friends are going to be there, and we do this as a community. So normally, you see a kid and they're like, well, I don't have anybody to go with, so I'm not going to go. And that certainly is not the case with your group.
No.
What other types of things do you do when you're out in the community?
So we partner up. We do a lot of collaborations. That's what I'm big on, because also I want them to feel comfortable in their environment that they live in, right? So my biggest thing is collaboration. So we essentially go to a variety of different businesses. We partner with a variety of different businesses. So just to name a few, like we partner with Royal Credit Union. We did that Test mobile app, and that's like kind of giving them a scenario of basically like their careers, what type of career they want to get into, spit some out of budget, and then they got to go around and basically, be an adult. You know what I mean? So just teaching them real life skills, right? We've traveled, we've partnered up with Junior Achievements of Northwestern Wisconsin, and we traveled up to the Appleton, Green Bay area where we toured the Packers Lambeau Field. I'm not a Packers fan. I'll just be frank about that.
Well, we're going to talk about your Sox hat later as well, because I'm a Cubs fan. So we'll have that discussion later, but not it's not for now.
Yes,
we're friends as it stands
there
today.
We go. I love it. I love it. And so Junior Achievement, just having them go through that experience, right? That wasn't a huge experience because it took them to another kind of idea of like having a career, right? Understanding life insurance, understanding how childcare entails, right, on a day-to-day basis for people that have big families, right? So that was a huge one. We've also partnered with Shields, where we gave tours of the store over there, and then just what it's like to be an employee. You know what I mean? How they treat their employees, all that good stuff. We partner with the Coven, where, co-working space, and these are just different things that I've just done with them just to help them get kind of acclimated into the Greater Eau Claire community. Even the Lismore, we did something over the summertime where we helped them to understand what it's like to make a bed as a housekeeper, right? What it's like to make food, what it's like to make coffee, right? Because let's be honest, the hospitality business is a lot different, right? And that's how you bring a lot of people. Like when people come and do different shows like that, they got to stay in those hotels. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So you want to make sure your hotels are up to date, up to speed, doing everything that it needs to do so it can keep attracting more and more. And then Eau Claire is a big growing place, right? So it's only right for us to do these cross collaborations with these various companies. And then Market & Johnson, we actually did a very hands-on, carpentry experience with them or whatever, where the kids got to they lay brick, they understood like how to put in drywall, they used the cranes. Like it was just a fun, cool experience for our kids. And my biggest thing is I love sports, don't get me wrong. I was a football player for UWEC, all that good stuff. But one of my biggest things is that I want them to look outside the box, right? And I'm so proud of, I got to shout out my one student, Khalil. He's now down in Houston, Texas right now. He just went off to college, graduated, went off to college. Now he goes to Texas Southern, but he's going to school for aviation.
Amazing.
And so one of my biggest things is that his goal is to be a pilot. And so just thinking outside the box, and somebody like that, him having that caliber, like people not thinking like that. You know what I mean? Especially our younger kiddos, they're not thinking like that. I want them to think bigger.
I think now, we have a lot of, I think it's quite honestly a small bit of a crisis, especially in our community right now, is that a lot of high school and young college students don't work.
There you go.
So they get out of college and they don't know how to set an alarm to get up and to be on time for work. They don't know how to dress for work.
Yes.
They don't know how to put their phone away while they're working.
Yes.
Because it's this constant, need to, and the other thing I've learned is that one said to me the other day, well, how do I know what time it is? And I said, well, look at you don't wear a watch. You're like, why would I wear a watch? I have my phone. I'm like, well, but, So, and I think what's amazing when you do some of these experiences with your youth is they walk through the door and they walk out and they either say, I want to do that for a living, or I know I don't want to do that for a living.
Correct. Yes.
And so I love working with my hands, or I'm not good at this. So I need to look in a different direction.
That's
so
it.
That hands-on experience is incredible. And, as we look at just getting them out and trying different things, and that's great.
And
stuff.
honestly, like when I have different guest speakers come in and speak to the kids, I gotta tell them, man, just be real with them. Don't just get them all the glitz and the glamours about your career, right? Because let's be frank about it too. I have my days where it's funny. People always told me that I'm on my fourth kid right now. So I got 2 boys, and then I'm gonna have eventually 2 girls. I got 1 girl already, but I'm expecting one on the 19th here. So huge shout out to that. Yeah, right around the corner. So if I got to dip up out of here, that's probably the reason being. But no, I'm okay. But just being honest with you all, like one of my biggest things about that is helping them realize big picture, big picture in life. Like, what do you want within yourself? You know what I mean? If these are certain goals and dreams that you want to hit, let's shoot for those. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, and your career is going to change, right? There are certain days where I wake up. They told me I was going to be drinking coffee by the time I had my 4th kid. I ain't drinking coffee yet. You know what I'm saying? I wake up because I'm inspired by the different things that, the kids, like I'll wake up and say, a kid might text me and say, Dennis, I listened to your advice, and now because of that, I got a scholarship. You know what I mean? Or I listened to your advice, now I got this job. You know what I mean? Or I took the initiative where now I went to go talk to my professor like you told me to do, and all of a sudden I raised my grade from a B to an A. Those are the different things that help me to keep thriving. And like I tell the guest speakers when they come in, don't get a glitz and glamorous. Tell them about the good, the bad, and the ugly, just in case, so they can understand. Like you said, it goes back to your point of, maybe I want to do this, and maybe it's like, no, I would never want to do this. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the reality. Even for me, my life, my career has changed, right? At first, I worked in higher ed. I did a lot of recruitment and retention for minority students at UWEC. Brought a lot of minorities, helped them graduate, and they're doing phenomenal things now. But now my trajectory has changed a little bit, but it also helped me realize that our younger generation needs me even more. You know what I mean? Like, I knew I was being called to help our younger generation. And so that's the middle schoolers, that's the high schoolers. I want to prepare them to start going off to college. But even when they get to college, I still want to be there, still want to nurture them, making sure they're good. So then when they hop off that college porch, right, they're hopping into the real world. And like you said, it goes back to those just little things. Did you set your alarm? You know what I mean? Is your LinkedIn up to date, right? Are you making sure your social media doesn't reflect your party life, it reflects more of your professional life. So those are just little different things, little gems that I always try to tell me and my team to instill into our mentees as we talk to them, especially our older ones, especially the high schooler ones, right? A lot of them feel like they grown, right? You know how that goes, or whatever. Yes. They 16, hopped off the porch, maybe got a mustache, and maybe,
oh my gosh, were you in my living room last night?
Man, tell me about it, So these are just different things, but it goes back to that. I've been there, done that. So I made that mistake. I don't want you to make that same mistake. So that's one of the biggest things. And so we try to give them opportunities, and it goes back to the quote that I've created. In order to create change, you must continue to create opportunities. So I always try to instill opportunities amongst our kids so they could see what type of change eventually can be made if they're in those positions of power. So that's what it is. That's what it entails.
And I can't wait to see what the reaction is this evening.
Yes.
And so when your group does an outing like this, we've got 75 to 100 power of perception students and mentors in our audience tonight. Is there a debrief afterwards? Is there kind of this afterglow where I'm going to find them all in the lobby and they're going to be talking about it and visiting, and how do they, or is it just happen organically? Like they start having these conversations back and forth?
It's kind of organic, but then also too, I'm gonna press the issue. So this year with our ECSD district-wide chapter, I'm doing a little bit of a different model. I'm doing more of a cohort model. So we broke them off into 5 groups of 6. And so essentially what we'll do is, obviously, you're going to have like the chatter tonight, excited about being here, all that good stuff. But at our next session, what we'll do is a reflection or whatever. So then I'll share that feedback with you all too of how it went, right? But I know tonight that we'll obviously do a big group photo. It's typically what we always do after a big event like this. And then we kind of talk to them intermittently, how they enjoyed it, all that good stuff. But then, like I said, next time we have our actual mentoring session, what we'll do is actually sit down with them and just ask them in-depth questions, right? How did that, you seeing somebody that look like yourself up there performing, how did that make you feel? You know what I mean? Do you all have anybody in your family? Because let's be frank, I'll just be honest with you. Some of the things that we do within Power Perception is the first time some of these kids have ever done. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't even be surprised to let you know that some of them, this might be their first concert that they ever been to. You know
I was just thinking about that, as they enter the theater tonight, understanding how do I go to will call?
That's it.
How do I pick my tickets up? How do I get them scanned? How do I find my seat? For me, it's something I literally do 220 days a year.
There you go.
But for others, walking through the front door of this facility might be incredibly intimidating or scary.
Yes.
And so now the next time they see something like this on the docket, whether it be here or in another place, they won't be intimidated. They can say, look, will call is right over here.
Yes.
Why it's called will call, I have no idea. If you didn't know what that meant, if you were walking in a theater for the first time, what does will call even mean? Well, it's where you pick up your tickets. Well, why doesn't it could say, pick your tickets up here.
Yes.
Right? Because, we have these theater terms we all use.
There you go.
So I'm thrilled to be able to even just building in some of these life skills for the students as they walk through the theater tonight, so that they aren't intimidated the next time something like this comes through, or they want to go watch their friends who might be in a play or that are performing in something else. Now they're like, oh, I know how to get into the Pablo. Super simple. Let me show you. And now they're empowered to share this with someone else. And again, when we go back to these COVID kids who don't do things in real life, they do things virtually, to be able to navigate, your students that now have traveled and have passports and know how to walk through an airport. And that's, I just watched an interview with Luke Combs, who's a big country music star, and he was just given an international touring award. And because he spent more, he traveled more miles internationally than any other artist last year in the country music world. And he said, what's interesting is 10 years ago, I'd never been on a plane.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know how to get on a plane. I didn't know how to walk through security. I didn't know how to do any of that. And now I've traveled the world more than any other artist this year. So, it's the same thing, and he's from, I think he's not from a major metropolitan area.
Gotcha.
He's from the South and a very small community. So I think we're doing the same thing with these students and teaching them how to navigate the world.
Yes, definitely. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like I said, it goes back to, giving them the opportunity, right? It's just like if they never got it, how are they going to be able to navigate it, right? And I just didn't start this program to say we started a program. I really want to make meaningful change and longevity change, right? Because I want them to be able to take it with them. It's just like tying your shoe. You never forget how to tie your shoe once you're taught it, right? It's just like what the saying goes, like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink it, right? I can lead you to the water all day. I'm not forcing you to drink anything, but I can guarantee you the drinks that we've been drinking are really good for you, because look at the success of other people, of what, of them just taking the advice in and just and applying it to their day-to-day life. And so I think that's the biggest thing, here. And so, like, I'm grateful for our community, man. Like they always say, teamwork will continuously make the dream work. And I'm a firm believer in that, because it takes a village to help raise our youth, and having you all be a part of our village, like that's huge for us right now, And so, like, just being accepting, like, because when you first start something out, I'll just be honest with you, you can kind of really tell, kind of getting a year or two in, who's really on your team. You know what I mean? And I think you all been rocking with us since day one. Even us hosting our Black and Red Ball here, every year.
That is such a cool
night. You all the one.
Oh.
I'll just be honest with y'all, helped inspire that. Monica literally was like, why can't, you host your Black and Red Ball here? You know what I mean? She was like, do you have an annual fundraiser? I was like, no. She was like, let me help you put that together. And so, we're in our third year coming up this year in February. February 7th is when the Black and Red Ball is going to take place. But I'm excited for that. But even for that, like, we embedded a fashion show within that. And so it gives the kids confidence to walk the runway, feel confident in the skin they're in and the clothes that they wear. But also, like, man, it's like I get to own this. You know what I mean? Like, I want them to see something different. And the scenes are not just any like rinky dink scenes. We got like interview ready. So how do you dress for being interview ready? What does it look like after you get the job? What does a business casual attire look like? What does diversity at its finest look like? Because I want to embrace that. Like, I don't want it to be just one culture. I want them to see like a variety of different. What does Hmong culture look like for their special clothing? What about Native American? What about Latino, Latinx? Like, I want them to see everything. Like,
I can tell you it's one of our favorite nights at Pablo.
Yeah,
we love the Black and Red Ball. And
you.
because for us, it allows, most of us grew up in this community, right? So these are things we've never seen.
Yes.
So, we had our first quinceañera here last year, and I was fascinated by the entire thing. And I couldn't believe the tradition and how beautiful it was.
Yes.
So at the same point, you all are teaching us so much.
Yes.
And I love that so much. So Dennis, we talked a lot about what Pablo's doing today.
Yeah.
So if somebody is listening to this and like, I need to get in touch with this guy because I need his students to experience the business that I do or the business that I create, how can they get in touch with you and talk to you about creating that opportunity?
I'm pretty active on social media. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram. But you also can email me too, dennisb www.powerofperception@gmail.com. And like I said, man, and obviously the students, any of the mentors, you know, they can reach out to me. Obviously, I'm one phone call away, honestly. So I try to make myself accessible as much as I can. But, you know, when you're married, you got 4 kids, you know, your time is pretty limited.
I'm just tired thinking about it.
Tell me about it. And then taking care of the external kids, man, but they are like my kids too. So I always try to make sure that I'm accessible, especially with my team and everything. But, you know, reach out. You know, you can hit us up on all our social media sites, however they need to do it. But I would love to collaborate. I'm always open to that. So
wonderful. And we'd love an opportunity to have the students in our building more often and create more opportunities for shows. And this one worked that Pablo Center was able to provide the tickets for the students to be able to come. But if somebody's listening and saying, hey, look, I want to buy 100 tickets for Power Perception, students over the next year, you know, reach out. We can make arrangements for that to happen. And I mean, maybe it's time for them to see Broadway.
Let's do it.
That's incredible. So Dennis, what a pleasure. It's always great talking to you. Your energy and your passion for what you do just bleeds out of every ounce of your being. So looking forward to tonight and celebrating with you and your students and your mentors and seeing what is going to be an incredible show.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you all again for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Always.
Definitely.